Hi, I'm Kyser Clark, and welcome to The Hacker's Cache, the show that decrypts the secrets of offensive security one bite at a time. Every week, I invite you into the world of ethical hacking by interviewing leading offensive security practitioners. If you are a penetration tester, bug bounty hunter, red teamer, or blue teamer who wants to better understand the modern hacker mindset, whether you are new or experienced, this show is for you. Hello. Welcome to the Hacker's Cache. My name is Kyser Clark, the host of the show. I have 6 years experience in cybersecurity, currently work as a full-time penetration tester. I have 12 certifications, a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, and I'm currently working on my master's degree in cybersecurity. Today I have Mike Finkel, who has spent 15 years in IT total, 5 of those years being in pentesting. He started out with routing tickets, help desk, moved to system administration and network engineering for healthcare and hospitals, and then went into pentesting after that. For education, Mike has a bachelor's in information systems, and for certifications, Mike has CRTP, CPTS, OSCP, OSCE, OSWE. So Mike, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this show with me, and go ahead and walk through your background and introduce yourself to the audience.
Happy to be here. My name is Mike. I started off just as a lowly routing tickets nerd. And when I was doing that, I was realizing, why am I routing tickets? I actually know how to fix this stuff. I've been working with computers for a while, just fixing, problems with my parents' computers and my computer and DOS and all that stuff. I started doing help desk. Then I was just so hungry for information, wanted to learn. So I moved on to system administration. And then I started doing network engineering for hospitals and everything. And then kind of got into this mindset where I wanted to kind of take a more unbeaten path. I want to take a path a little less traveled. So I decided to learn how to hack. And I basically had no security experience at all. Just worked with firewalls a little bit. I decided to take the OSCP with very little experience, and I ended up studying for that for about 6 months because I was coming from ground zero. I didn't know what a proxy was. I didn't know what any of the terminology was. And this was back before ChatGPT, so I had to Google every last little bit of it until I finally understood it. I got my first pen testing gig before I even finished the OSCP, and I've been working as a pen tester for 5 years. I've done kind of the whole gambit, so anywhere from internals to externals, web applications, container breakouts, source code testing, pretty much all the things except mobile. It's one thing I haven't touched really.
You were talking about you want to take the road less traveled and went into pen testing, which is a really good description of kind of what we do. That's actually one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because it is a road less traveled, and a lot of people really don't know how to break in the field. And that's one of the things I wanted to tackle in this podcast, which is why I started the podcast, to help people get in the field, because I find it really fun. I love what I do. So what made you go into offense security specifically over defense security? Anything in particular?
Because it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Same, man. That's exactly what I did. I was like, I want to be the hacker, because it's such a mysterious title. And then, when you talk to normal people, they're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's definitely a conversation. For the audience that doesn't know, I'm a military veteran. So when I got out of the military, I had to go to the VA to get my VA identification card. And I'm not even kidding, when I was in there getting my ID, the guy asked me for my occupation, because that's one of the questions they ask when you're getting your veteran ID. And I was like, I'm a penetration tester. And the guy, if you're listening, you're not going to be able to see my reaction, but he just leaned forward like this, and his eyes just looked like, and he was so confused when I said penetration tester. And a lot of people, their mind isn't really. It goes in a different place when you say that sometimes. So he was just mind blown. Yeah, man, that's exactly why I went into pen testing for, because it's the cool factor, man. It's definitely there. Let's go ahead and get on our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for the rapid fire round?
Let's do it.
Okay, so for the new listeners, we have 5 rapid fire questions that Mike has to answer in 30 seconds. If he answers all 5 questions in 30 seconds, he gets a bonus 6th question. and his time will start as soon as I stop asking the first question. You're allowed to skip a question and come back to it if you feel that is necessary.
All right.
Here we go. Best advice for aspiring hackers.
Certifications.
Favorite tool not many people know about.
Skip.
Blockchain, yay or nay?
Yeah.
Favorite hacking distro.
I just use Ubuntu, but I like Linux Mint.
Security through obscurity, yay or nay?
Oh, no. Of course not.
Favorite tool not many people know about.
Weird Owl. Just because I like the name.
That was 40 seconds long, so a little over 30 seconds there. That was a hard question. Favorite tool not many people know about. You can honestly throw any tool in there, and I would have just moved. But what'd you say? You said something owl?
Yeah, Weird Owl is what it's called.
I've never heard of that one, so this is perfect. So I'm gonna ask about that. What does that tool do?
It's just one that I thought of randomly. I think it does AWS scans, but I could be wrong. So
Oh,
we'll see.
it definitely has a unique name.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's.
Some tool.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say just throw out the first thing you thought of. That's
Yeah, all I
kind of
can
the
think
point
was like
of the rapid fire round, so
OSCP.
that's okay. So let me ask you this one then. We'll dive into security through obscurity. I asked yay or nay, and you said nay. Now I'm going to throw out my perspective first because I personally like security through obscurity, but I don't think you should use it as like the sole security. So basically, you need to build like something that's actually secure before you hide it, rather than leaving. Because I feel like if you secure something, and let's say it's like almost unpenetrable, and it's you're following best practices on an asset or whatever. Even though you're following all the best practices and it's still discoverable, that makes it a target. Whereas if you can harden it and then hide it, I think that's the best thing to do. Now, I don't think you should just, not harden that asset and then hide it. Do you think that's okay to do, or do you think obscurity is just a complete waste of time?
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. Defense and layers. So obscurity is a layer. It might be a weak layer, but it is a layer. Anything that helps security, yeah, why not? If the question was, should it solely be obscurity? Well, yeah, no, it shouldn't. But with that added context, and yeah, I agree.
Okay, yeah. There was definitely not a lot of context there, so I understand why you picked nay, but with added context, then it's kind of like, yeah, it's okay to do it if you harden it first or
Totally.
whatever. All right, so let's go ahead and get our main discussion. So the first thing I want to talk about certifications, and that's actually one of your other rapid fire responses. You said best advice for aspiring hackers, and you said certification. So this is actually a double whammy. I was planning on talking about certifications anyways. And by the way, I never actually said this on any episode. So if you have listened to every episode up to this point, basically the way these rapid fire questions are generated, I have a list of 71 questions, and they are randomly pulled each episode, and that's how I come up with these questions. So a lot of these questions I came up with myself, and then I ChatGPT'd like the rest of them. That's how these questions came to be, and then they're randomly pulled. So when people get the rapid fire questions, they're semi-random. Like I have a list that I like, and then I just pull randomly from that pool. So I want to ask, what certification do you lean on the most when it comes to your daily work as a pen tester?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends on the type of service that I'm doing. So when I do web apps, something like the web certs are going to be, more helpful. Yeah, OSCP and the CBTS, like those are pretty good just to get like kind of like a baseline for like web apps, for instance, and good like general pen testing. But I found it really helpful to kind of go through like the OffSec training of the OSWE or AWAE, whatever it's called, just going that route. I don't think when I took it, there was kind of that lower level one. I can't remember. I think it's OSWA. I don't think that was around. Maybe it was, but I ended up just going with that one because at that time I was getting work doing source code testing. I needed a cert that would helped me out with that. And that really, really helped. And then I'm about like 80% done with the Burp Academy as well. And that's awesome. As far as internals and all that stuff, OSCP, CPTS, like, yeah, they really help quite a bit as you get a lot of this general information. And then you also kind of understand how to look for that information as well, which is extremely important in our line of work. We have to understand how to get information fast, especially when we're learning like new technologies and things like that.
Right, yeah, that's key. Learning new technology fast, because every pen test, especially if you're doing client engagements like we do, you get thrown in an environment that you've never been into before, and you have to learn things on the fly. And I feel like I spend a lot of time like researching things that I've never seen before, and that's definitely a vital skill, which is when I tell people when it comes to OSCP on LinkedIn, I just see, people bash OSCP because the course doesn't explain everything that you need to know to pass that certification. I try to tell people like that's the point. Like when you're in the exam, like you have to research on the fly. And that's the point of the certification. And your experience might have been different, but when I went through, it's like I had to research during my exam. Like I didn't know everything.
Yeah.
When I started the exam, I had to, Google on the fly.
Yeah, 100%.
You talked about the OSWE, that's the OffSec Web Expert. I don't have that certification, and I would like to get it one day. From my interpretation of like what it is, so it's mostly source code review, correct? It's more like for a code review and like white box testing. Is that correct?
Yeah, and keep in mind, like most of these certs, I guess I took CRTP and CPTS pretty recently, but the other ones, especially the OSSEC ones, I haven't like seen the new updated ones since they put them in like the web modules. I did OSCP when they're still doing buffer overflows, so I can only give my experience from when I took them. But yeah, it was basically like source code testing mostly.
You brought up OSWA, so that's the OffSec Web Assessor. So that's Web 200, OSWE's Web 300, and Web Assessor. It's more for the black box testing, I think. And I'm currently in that. I've actually done that course already, and I already said this on one of the other episodes, but I've taken that exam twice now, and I failed it twice by a very narrow margin. And I really like that certification, that course. It definitely before that course, I didn't have a whole lot of like black box, like web app testing skills. But then I went through that course, and even though I don't have the certification, I still learned a ton that I'm applying to my work every day. So I would definitely recommend that for if you're doing black box assessments. So do you think the OSWE helps with black box assessments at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, really helps knowing like what's happening under the hood. So like when I'm looking at a piece of technology, when I'm doing a black box test, I'm actually thinking about like, okay, what's actually happening in the code that can help either guide me to what my next attack might be or eliminate attacks. Which might be even more important. Because sometimes, especially as a new tester, you're like, what do I do? There's like a million different things, and it can be overwhelming. So it helps to kind of understand what it can't be, actually. I think it absolutely helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I said, I haven't done the OSWE, so I'm currently lacking, that level of knowledge and that skill to look at the code behind the scenes like that. But I do. That's one of the things I'm trying to get to in my career. After OSWE is on my radar. I definitely agree with you 100%. The more you know, the better. And I think you got to start somewhere. So obviously you can't skip OSWA, the Web 200, and go straight to Web 300, but I think the Web 200 course was pretty good. All right, moving on, I want to talk about college degree, and you brought this up prior to the recording. So I would like you to share your opinion on college degree. So do you think it's needed, not needed for offense security career?
Right. So I hated college. I'm just going to say that up front. I really, really did not enjoy it. And I thought a lot of classes were a waste of time, to be very honest. I did pretty bad at a lot of those classes that I didn't care about. I don't know if you're like this, but if you're not really that interested in something, then you just don't dissect it and try to understand it. But when I really am engaged with something and really interested, then I'm going to study the crap out of it and really try to understand it. Do you need a college degree? If you want to pass like the HR test, to get your foot in the door, some companies are going to require it. It sucks. Some companies, you're just not going to be able to interview with them. Some college courses and curriculums, they're probably good, some of them. Like I took kind of like a generic business information systems thing. So I learned like classes like statistics and things like that. And I just don't remember anything about it. I don't remember any statistics at all. So it's like, what's the point? But, I took some computer classes and, I was really into them and that helped. But, even with that, like I took like process modeling and it's like, I don't, I don't remember any of that, just drawing like boxes and like processes inside of them. I don't, sure, whatever, I guess. So yeah, I would say some companies are going to require it. A lot of degrees are just not good. If for actual knowledge, some degrees are probably going to be good. Like I imagine a computer science degree, with good professors is probably going to help you out with pen testing.
I really like how you brought up statistics because I'm not even kidding when I say this. I actually use something from my statistics college course in a
Yeah.
pen test.
Oh wow.
And what it was, one of my big takeaways was a good sample size is 30. It's like statistics 101, basically. It's like a universal, like accepted thing. In my pen test, I was testing out payload 1 and payload 2, and I tested them out each out 30 times, and that's why I came up with that number. It was like because of statistics class, because I wanted a good sample of the test, so I ran it 30 times each and then compared the results, and yeah, I wrote up about that. So that's funny you mentioned statistics, and I actually used statistics in my last test. So for those who don't know, me and Mike work at the same company. One of our things in our company is they're huge on client engagement, client satisfaction, client communication, and they really want the pen testers to be really good at customer service as well. It's a vital skill in our company. So, Mike, you've worked for other companies, and I'm kind of curious on your take when it comes to pen testing and just kind of live like pen testing under a rock and not, engaging with clients or like not turn on the microphone or the camera with clients. Do you think having customer service skills is a vital skill, or do you think you can get by just like being a pen tester in the basement?
Yeah, so kind of talked about a little bit, but when I first started, I definitely had a lot of social anxiety, and I also didn't really understand like the technical aspects of it. Talking with clients, I was terrified, of talking to them, and especially when I first started, I actually had like my boss there with me to kind of help me out, if there were some questions. And then as I started kind of gaining knowledge and just getting better at communicating, I started to understand how important it is to actually be able to communicate to clients. At the end of the day, we're giving them a report and then we're giving them a walkthrough and explaining these findings. They don't necessarily care about the process 95% of the time. So this is, I consider it a deliverable. This is a product of our work. I think it's important in order to get their business back and in order for them to be, happy with our company. Sometimes if you're just charismatic, maybe you make a joke or something that can make or break the entire project. That could be the difference between them coming back or not. So I do think it's important when you're first starting out. Like I said, I think it's understandable, that you're going to be nervous and you might not know what to say, but these are things that you're going to develop over time. So I feel like you can probably get away with it for a little bit, but as you get more experience, I think you're kind of expected to be able to talk with clients. It's just part of the job.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty new in the pen testing world, but client engagement really wasn't a problem with me just because I spent 6 years as a system administrator where I was in a customer facing role. My job title was literally client systems technician, which is what client means client devices, but when you have client devices, I have to talk to end users all the time. I worked help desk and stuff. So I felt like because of that, because I was a system administrator and I worked at the help desk, learning how to deal with clients was a lot easier and wasn't as intimidating as I thought it was going to be. Do you think that your system administration and help desk experience played a role in helping you be a good speaker with clients?
It helped, but maybe I was more kind of nervous than more people, because it wasn't even just in the job, it was also just in my life too, where I just had social anxiety and everything. It took me to overcome it, like professionally and personally. It's going to depend, person to person. Some people enjoy talking with people, some people don't. There's, I think, a stereotype of computer people in general that we're just not great at communicating. But I think like a lot of pen testers end up becoming pretty good, at least talking with clients, just because we have to do it so often.
And what advice would you give the audience to overcome that social anxiety?
Get out of your comfort zone. I took that very seriously. There's a time in my life where I was like, I really need to like overcome this, and figure out how to like fix this issue. It's just not going to fix itself. Getting out of your comfort zone anyway that's possible. For me, I started traveling by myself. I ended up doing like a trek, 110-mile trek in France, Switzerland, Italy. It was Tour de Mont Blanc, so you go around the Alps. I went to Mexico, climbed 3 mountains by myself with a guide, but it was still like I went by myself, so I had to, you know, I don't speak Spanish, so I had to, communicate with people to figure out how to get around and get on the right bus and all that stuff. So I did a lot of traveling. And then something else that I did was take improv classes. That's like improv comedy. And nothing's going to get you out of your comfort zone faster than getting in front of a bunch of people and trying to be funny. It's very, very
Well,
difficult.
yeah, that is really hard. It's terrifying doing that. Public speaking is actually like one of the top rated fears for the majority of people out there.
Right.
So if you're listening or watching this podcast, you have social anxiety. I feel like that's kind of normal because, especially in our field, I think naturally technologists, people who are into technology, are naturally introverted. I'm naturally introverted. It's crazy to say because I started a podcast and I can talk to people really well, but I am naturally introverted, and the way I know that is because when I talk to people too long, I get headaches and my energy drains. So extroverts, they gain energy by speaking to people. My energy drains. So back in my last job in the Air Force, talking to customers and explaining the problem and the solutions to them all day, every day, I would just get home, my head would just be pounding. I feel like it's pretty normal to be introverted in this field, and I think it's more common than not. That's really good advice. Traveling by yourself, if you can afford it. I did travel by myself one time. Was when I got out of tech school. I went to South Korea and I made that trip completely by myself. And I'm in this country trying to figure out where my base is and stuff. And all these people are speaking Korean to me. I have no idea what I'm doing. I got some small instructions from my sponsor, but I landed so late that I had to make it into my room pretty much by myself. It was quite an experience for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, we do like being behind a computer, and just plugging away. Like I can do that for, hours and hours without communicating with anybody and be just happy and fine. But it is really nice once you start kind of developing those skills, like being able to talk to random people, when you're in line or wherever you are. It's a nice skill to have personally and professionally. I think it helps people to like you. And like I said, that applies to both your work and outside of work.
Yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned you just talk to random people in the wild. I used to just kind of like stick to myself when I'm out in public, and I just don't really talk to a lot of people. However, when I was traveling one time, I went to one of the airport bars. I just sat there and I saw a guy with he had a Green Bay Packers wallpaper on his phone.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge football fan. I used to play football in high school. I like football, so I just made that my talking point to him. We started talking about football, and then the conversation led to, I just got out of the Air Force. I'm working as a pen tester now, and I'm not even kidding. This guy overheard the conversation. He's like, "Dude, you're a pen tester?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm a pen tester." So I found this random pen tester in the wild just because I talked to a random guy at the bar,
Yeah.
because I was waiting for a flight.
Yeah.
So you just never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah. I'm gonna add on to that story. When I was in Peru, I was getting dinner by myself, and then the people next to me, a guy and a girl, they were speaking English. So I started chatting with them, and yeah, he was a red team operator. I'm like, well, how wild is that? And some random country that I meet someone who does, something similar to what I do. It's crazy.
Yeah, that
And
is crazy. That's really cool.
that's something that you just never, you never get unless you get out of your comfort zone. You'll never find that. And like those moments are awesome. And I still have his number and I'll still talk to him once in a while.
I'm really glad you brought this up because I feel like that is one of the big challenges for people in our field. I mean, when I was my first job, I was 16, 17 years old, working in a restaurant, and I was terrified to talk to customers. Like I was just terrified. But I had to break out of my shell because I wanted a paycheck. But so that was my motivation there to be more of a outspoken individual. Let's go ahead and move to our final question. Do you have any additional cybersecurity hot takes or hidden wisdom you'd like to share?
I think I'll consider this a hot take because I think even within our team, there's people that like it and people that don't like it. And that's AI. I love AI. I think it's awesome. I think it's the future. It's great. Is it going to cause bad stuff? Of course, everything does. But I am absolutely looking forward to seeing what comes next with it. I think this is just the beginning, and I think it's really huge. So I know that there's plenty of people that think it's overrated, and they think it's not anything special. So that's my hot take.
I would say that's a hot take. I mean, it's definitely one of the most talked about things right now because last week I was at AWS Reinforce, and that was like one of the big talking things at that conference was AI. And I actually made a video and put on YouTube talking about AI a lot because that's what the focal point of that conference was. And yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely a huge thing, and there are people that are kind of like sweeping it under the rug. I don't think it's a fad. I don't think it's a fad at all. It's not going away. I think if you are purposely ignoring it, you are setting yourself up for failure because I think you have to be able to understand how to use AI, especially like ChatGPT and what do they call large language models, generative AI. If you're not using that, I feel like you're at an incredible disadvantage. I use ChatGPT for almost everything, and I can do everything so much faster, and it helps me out so much. Sometimes if I have a question about something, I will ask ChatGPT before I even Google it. That's how much I use ChatGPT. I use it almost like Google because it reaches out to Google. Oh, I don't know if it uses Google, but it has a search engine built in, and it can answer questions pretty accurately. You got to fact check things that are like super important, but for general information, I think it's pretty good technology. It's definitely got a lot of security risks going forward because another thing I found out about ChatGPT now, it actually remembers its conversations that that it had with you in the past. So it used to be like it would forget what you told it, 5 messages ago, but now it will remember conversations it had with you a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and it's crazy. I found that out on accident because I accidentally typed something in and I didn't give it all the information. And then I was like, how do you know that? And it's like, oh, I know that. I literally asked, how do you know that about me? It's like, oh, that's because you told me in a different conversation. I was like mind blown. I was like, this is great because now I don't have to type a paragraph every time to give you the background information. You already have that information about me. I use ChatGPT to help me structure this podcast, for example, and I don't even I'm not even kidding. Last night I asked ChatGPT, I was like, hey, what do you know on my podcast? And it just spit out all the details about my podcast. I was like, great. I don't have to explain anything to you. I'm like, what do you think about this? Because I run by so many ideas with ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a good strategy? What's the pros and cons of this approach to this in my podcast? And I would be lost without it. I really love AI, and I really do think if you're ignoring it, then you're going to get left behind in this competitive field.
Yeah, and there is some companies that are marketing it, and yeah, it's like kind of using it, kind of not. I understand like where people come from that say that there's parts of it that are overrated. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I think we should look at this as a big positive, and then figure out how we can build on top of it. I really want to see what this new generation of tools and kind of ideas that come through with AI as far as pen testing goes. Like I'm actually really excited, and that's something that I want to spend time on, is just doing research on AI just to see how it can help with pen testing. Maybe I could create some kind of tool that would help, because I feel like there are definitely opportunities there, that people haven't found yet, or at least that aren't public yet, I should say. But yeah, I also use it every day. It's my Google 2.0. Just be careful. It does get stuff wrong. I asked it a subnetting question because I forgot how to do that. And it got the subnetting wrong. I'm like, I know that's not the right answer. So I asked it, I'm like, are you sure that's it? It's like, oh, actually, you're right. I'm like, why didn't you just get it right the first time? But, that's the danger. Right now, it's not perfect. It's probably never going to be perfect. It's going to get really good. It'll never be perfect, though, probably. Yeah, make sure that you just don't trust it 100%. It's not going to give you like 100% accuracy or, even like 100% secure code. Keep that in mind, too. I think I saw a video on YouTube. They wrote like some code and introduced the security bug into it. So, just be careful with it.
Great advice. Mike, if the audience wants to get a hold of you outside of the podcast, where can I do that, or how can I do that?
That's a good question. I'm not on anything pretty much.
He's a ghost in the wires, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I don't have much social media.
He was here, now he will be gone. Thank you so much for your time and attention to this episode. This definitely will give a lot of value to the audience. If you want to get a hold of me, the best place to do that's on LinkedIn, or check out my website, kyserclark.com, and check out the next episode. Hopefully I see you there. Until then, this is Kyser, signing off.